Okay.
All right, it's all yours.
Hey, thank you. My name is Kelly Espy, and I am a registered nurse, and I'm presently working as a water instructor, aerobics instructor at the Freedom Center here in Manassas. And I also very much enjoy traveling. And 14 years ago, I took my first trip with Road Scholar, and I have just enjoyed being with them from the first trip. I was just saying to Gary, I really have never had a bad experience with Road Scholar. I think they really have it put together. So I think we'll move it along. That's a picture of me with Road Scholar, or just no, that's, I'm not with Road Scholar. I'm going to change that to some of my activities with Road Scholar because I do have some better pictures. I have taken trips. The first one I did take was a grandparent trip with my granddaughter, and that just really hooked me on it for the way they do things. They're very inclusive. They take care of everything. And it's just a good feeling to have somebody doing a lot of things for you, all the ins and outs of travel. And as we know, it gets more complicated. It does get more complicated. I was going to say as we age, it gets more complicated, but it is just getting more complicated. So I hope I can share with you some interest in Road Scholar, and hopefully by the end of the presentation, you'll be interested in going someplace. So hopefully I'll spark your interest. Road Scholar likes to call themselves the university of the world. They have programs in 150 countries. Over 7 million people have traveled with Road Scholar. They have programs in every single state. It's a not-for-profit organization. It's not a commercial travel company, and you'll see the ins and outs of that as we go along. They did always keep connections with the universities in the various cities and various countries. They started as Elder Hostel. Some folks might remember that name, and it started in 1975. And they were going over to Europe and using the dorms because in Europe, the students didn't attend school in the summertime. And then, of course, they started attending school in the summertime, and the elder hostels were kicked out. And then as people were aging, but they were getting younger as they were aging, and they wanted to do more activities and do more adventurous things, let's say, and they were expanding their programs. So they decided to change the name to Road Scholar, but they wanted to keep scholar in it because it's always been about learning, and their programs, no matter what you would be doing with Road Scholar, you're going to be learning something. This is a program. It's just a picture of Cuba, as you can see. And Cuba, when it was opened up years ago, Road Scholar was the first one that was able to do programs. And I think the year that it was opened up to the public, there was 12 different programs in Cuba that year because it was open to. So they're very proud of the connections that they have. And I think particularly their European programs, because they do Africa and they do Asia, they do international, but they have the connections with the university. So when they bring in speakers, you might be on a Road Scholar trip for 8 or 9 days, and you might have maybe 16 different people that have come in to talk, to lecture on, be it art or be it music or be it a museum, their expertise. And they're very good, and they're very high quality. And Road Scholar is proud of that, and it shows in their programs. Road Scholar programs, the one thing in common is that you're with a group of people that like to learn. The last trip I went on, they just go, how many people have been on a Road Scholar trip before? And I'd say a third of the group have taken a trip with Road Scholar. So you're meeting people, and of course well, where did you go last and where do you want to go next? And it's, and then Road Scholar also sends you, when you sign up for a program, they send you a reading list of books of just about where you're going and about maybe a murder mystery or something about the place that you're going to see. So they really do emphasize that, and it's kind of fun because I like to learn. This is a slide, and why we use this, you'll see the lady in the pink. She has what they call these whispers, and these are the little devices that come with programs. I think the only time they don't have them, the ski program, they don't use them, but every other program. So it's really nice if you haven't had that or the experience of that, your lecturer or guide could be quite a distance from you, and you're still able to hear her. But as you go around to see a monument or whatever, you can look at it, and then as the group takes off, you can still get a further peek at it, and you're always with the group with these whispers. So it's a very nice thing, and they're provided. It's a grant that someone gave to Rhodes Scholar for these little whispers. This is a program. This is a lady. It's a picture. She is by herself, and within the last year or two, or really since the pandemic, there's been more requests to do solo programs or programs only for women, and they've really expanded those. If you're interested in solo traveling, Rhodes Scholar is a good place to do it. And although you're traveling by yourself, you have your own room, you're never really alone, because you're having meals with all your meals, or most of your meals are included, and you're with people really all the time. So it's a wonderful way that if you are a single person and you like to travel, but you can do it in a very, very safe and comfortable environment. I feel with Rhodes Scholar, having done other tour companies, Viking and Globus in Europe, I felt that the value was good for the money you spend. It's very hard to sit down. I tried to do it, like compare a trip to England with Rhodes Scholar and a trip that we had done on our own. And it's really pretty complicated, because how do you rate a hotel, what people want in a hotel, what some people want, other people, it's not as important to other people. But with Rhodes Scholar, all your lodging is included. So that's all taken care of. Most of your meals, usually you'll have a lunch on your own, and you might have one dinner on your own, but you'll know that because you'll get a full itinerary. All your field trips, all your lectures, all that's included. You have your group leaders. You have all the program transportation. Like when we were in Rome, we flew to Rome. Now your transportation from your home to your start destination, that's on your own, that you're paying for that on your own. Now you'll see more programs coming out, particularly if you book into the next year, where they are including free air. But for the most part, consider your transportation to be on your own. But any transportation within the trip. So we took a high-speed train from Rome to Florence, and then we had 2 or 3 days in Florence, and then another high-speed train to Venice, and that's all that's included. All the tickets are included, and it's just a nice way to go. They have all taxes and tips, as I said. Then they have an assurance program, and it includes 24/7 emergency assistance. And this is included in any trip that you go on: emergency medical evacuation, baggage insurance. And they have a way of kind of protecting you a little bit. They do advise that we do get insurance, if you would have an illness or something and had to cancel the trip. But once you are on the trip, Rhodes Scholar really does take care of you. It's very, very interesting. We can talk more about that. There is something for everyone with Rhodes Scholar. They have Adventures Afloat, and they have various ships that they take, and sometimes they'll take a part of the ship, or sometimes with like the American Queen, everybody on the ship is part of Rhodes Scholar. They have programs on animals and wildlife, art history, museums, biking, birding, trips if you're interested in food and wine, a lot of history programs on history, home and garden, intergenerational programs. That's the grandparent program, or grandparent, parent, and child. There's language study programs. So if you're interested, they also have retreats, and a knitting club and a bridge club. And back to the retreats, it's a very economical way to take a trip. I've been looking at those retreats for the most part. The lodging is not as nice, maybe, because they're done more in cabins, and for the most part, they're a little bit more remote. So it's less city and less involvement money-wise. So they're a very, very good value. So that's something to look into if you just want to get away for a couple of days. Here's the walking and hiking. They look like a great bunch of people having a trip here in Utah, and that's just the walking and hiking. And our next, this is the American Queen. This is the floating campus. This is down in Mississippi. And my husband and I took this trip. We went down and we had 3 days in New Orleans, and then we boarded the American Queen. And we went on up the Mississippi, and we ended up in Memphis. And that was a very leisurely, relaxing. They said if you didn't gain 10 pounds on the American Queen, you really didn't eat at all. And it was like a lot of food on that trip, but very, very interesting part of New Orleans. And what I liked about it, my husband, for some reason, had New Orleans. He was like, I don't know, there's a lot that happens down there. I'm not so happy. And I said, trust me, Road Scholar won't take us if it's not safe. And when we were down there, there were a couple of the gentlemen saying, gee, there's such and such a bar or such and such a place, casino or whatever, and is it still safe to go there? And Road Scholar, because their group leaders are all local people, they would say, if you want to, the answer was, if you want to go, you can go, but go in the daylight. So they kind of have this protection that you feel very safe. And when you arrive at your hotel to start your program, there'll be somebody there with Road Scholar, or if you have arranged for transportation from an airport to the hotel when you arrive at the airport. I think we've all seen those signs, like Road Scholar or whatever. So from that moment on, they take your luggage and they whisk you off, and you arrive at a hotel. There's someone there from Road Scholar that meets you, your group leader. Many of the programs start on a Sunday evening, so they'll start with a dinner and kind of a get together and an orientation. So it's obviously a nice way to go. They do signature cities. They'll take a city like this is New York City, and you'll spend 5 to 7 days, and that's all you do. You go there, you're in a hotel, and then they just take you all around. So you really would do all of New York City, from the High Line to St. Patrick's Cathedral, or all that you want to see, the Empire State Building. So it's all concentrated, and they'll do that in Paris. They actually did that in New Orleans. We opted to go out on the boat, on the ship, but you also could have a trip where you would spend like 5 days in New Orleans and see the museums. There's quite a bit to see in New Orleans and the various neighborhoods. So they do that. This is your national parks. Last summer, I happened to look at it, and there was like over 40 trips to various national parks. So they're very much into hiking and nature. So if that's your bend and you like to do that, you could take a look at it. We have catalogs. I'll just point this one up. This is the largest catalog. I don't think you can see much of that. Of course, everything is online, but it's nice to request a catalog because you get a good feeling for it. And there would be a whole catalog on national parks if you were interested in that. If that was kind of daunting in size, we also have the smaller catalogs too that you can request. It's a wild world out there, and this is hiking, biking, and kayak for more of the actor learning adventures around the globe. So these are just various catalogs that are available to you. This is a grandparent program, which they have. I guess this is my first experience with Road Scholar, and one of my favorites, actually. I started with my granddaughter when she was 8. So they have, if you would go in and put in grandparent programs, they would ask you the age of the child or children. And then when you would put that in, they would bring up, if you have dates that are available, you can put that in. If you have a certain place you want to go, you could put that in. But if you just go in to look at grandparent programs, they have them in categories from 8 to 10, 10 to 12, and then 12 to 14. So there's 3 different categories. And I took her, we live here in Virginia, and I took her over to West Virginia to it was called the Good Zoo. And we came in on a Sunday afternoon. I think it was probably about 2.5 hours over there to West Virginia, and stayed at a lodge and with 13 other children and grandparents. And I was just so impressed with the way they handled that program. The Good Zoo, it's called the Good Zoo because it's outdoors. So all the animals are basically outdoors. I mean, there are some fences, obviously, but it's all they're not caged in at all. And they pick the animal that they would like. My granddaughter picked the meerkat. And she fed the meerkat with a ranger, and then she, would give him water. And it was like, this was her little project for the week, and made pictures and made treats and she drew the ideal place where he could live very, very comfortably. And it was quite an experience for her. And she just enjoyed it at night. They brought in a musician one evening. They brought in the people who make those balloons, and of course the balloons are made out of animals, and they could all pick their animal. So it's just a fun time with her. And, there was all children in their own age group. It was good. And then I did take her to Paris. So that's a grandparent program. So before I leave that, if you have some grandchildren, don't wait. It's really, really a good thing to do, is to take them on a trip, because it's an experience. And I think as a grandparent, not to have to worry about meals, not to have to worry about transportation, but just to see your grandchildren learning and enjoying and interacting. It's just really worthwhile experience. We did let's say West Virginia, then we did Rome, Florence, and Venice. And then we did Hawaii. I did take her to Hawaii. That was when she was kind of like, oh, okay, Grandma, where do we want to go? And she goes, well, let's just see about it. And then I said, well, how about, you could do a little surfing in Hawaii. She says, oh, yes, Grandma, I want to go. So she was at the age then, she was just 12. So it was a good thing. And again, a very, very good trip. So I highly recommend looking into the grandparent program. This is something new for Rhodes Scholar. It's basically at home. This started with the pandemic, and they have multi-generation, multi-day programs, 4 days, as I said. I did do Costa Rica with them. Then they also have lectures, online lectures that you can sign up for them. Some of them are recorded, most of them are interactive. And it's just, if you go on to Rhodes Scholar at Home, you will see what they offer. And it's $25 to take this lecture. And I've done it with some of my friends, and something that we're interested in. She's come in with lunch, and I've paid for the program, and we sit down and we have lunch together and enjoy a Rhodes Scholar trip. So it's a nice thing to do, particularly people who are confined to their home. And they've started, someone gave a grant, and we now are able to have one lecture a month that's free. So at the end of the program, I'll show you how to do that. You could get on and this evening, listen to something, a lecture for 1 hour that would be free. So that's, am I not talking loud enough? You want me to talk louder, Gary?
No, you're fine.
Oh, I thought you were giving me a signal or something.
No,
Okay.
no, I was scratching my head. Sorry.
Oh, okay, that's allowed. That's allowed. Okay, so we're back to the lectures at home. And this is a Zoom, people. They're all on their Zooms in their various locations. And this is what I was saying about the multi-day programs. It'd be about 4 days, and the lectures run from 4 hours a day, maybe to 5 hours a day, but it's international. So one day the lecture might start at 8. So from 8 to 9:30, you might have a lecture, then you might have a break for 1 hour, 1.5 hour, whatever. And then, but they keep this Zoom on all the time. So as people are getting up and having their various, be it breakfast or lunch, whatever their time zone is, you're interacting with them. You're talking about the program. What have you done? Where have you been? So after 4 days of being with a group of people, it's usually between 10 and 15 people. You really get to know them, and they try to make it seem just like you were on a Rhodes Scholar trip. So you're interacting with these folks, and they have a magnificent way of, when I did the Costa Rica, I'm sitting, I have a smart TV, so I had the computer going, and I also had it on my smart TV. And she's like walking down the street, and I feel like I'm just walking with her. It was just kind of amazing the way they were able to photograph it. And that's not my cup of tea, but it's really quite a nice way. And particularly for people who are confined to their home and can't travel. I actually did give this as a gift to an aunt. She wanted to go to England, and she kept putting it off because of one illness, and one knee had to be repaired, and then the other knee had to be repaired. So as a family, we came together and gave her a holiday gift of her trip to England via her living room, and she still talks about it. So it's really a good thing to consider doing. Okay, this is online without leaving home, so you're able to continue learning and to enjoy, and you don't have to leave your own home to do it. There's also, as a group, you're a group of folks in Arlington, you can reserve for your group if 20, most of the Rhodes Scholar programs are 20 to 25 people, because that seems to be the bus accommodations pretty much around the world. And if it gets too much more than that, it gets a little bit hard to move all those people around. But if you do have a group, Rhodes Scholar would help you organize it. You would pick your country, and then you would work with someone at Rhodes Scholar. And very often then they're able to do transportation. If it's air transportation, by doing it as a group, you're able to get a nice rate on your transportation. So it's a nice way to bring your group together and go see someplace that you will really like to go with people that you know. So there's something for that too. Rhodes Scholar is a not-for-profit organization, and they really just want to inspire adults to learn, and children, of course, and to give you the opportunity to take the journey of a lifetime. So it's a very good organization. They also have caregiving grants. And as a nurse, I really appreciated this when I heard about it. And it's a grant that's given to someone who has cared for a loved one. And sometimes, I mean, they'll do it if if a loved one is in hospice. Your only requirement is in fact that you've been the caregiver for this patient. And if the patient does pass on, then you have, I think it's up to 2 years, to apply for this grant, or a family member can apply for you. And it's not really financial need. They're not looking at the expenses. If you've ever taken care of someone, you can realize there are a lot of incidental expenses that are not covered. But it's a more of a way to just give you a chance to recoup, to have, you can't, when you have the death of a loved one, you can't think of traveling, although sometimes you very much need to kind of get away and break away from it. You just don't have the energy to put something together. And by giving it, the grant is $1,500 towards a trip. It's a little bit of an incentive to help push you along. And in fact, I've just done this for a girlfriend who's lost her husband. And she initially did pretty well. And then 3 or 4 or 5 months later, she wasn't doing anything. We're in a book discussion group. And I said, gee, where were you last month? We missed you. And she said, I just couldn't get it going. I just couldn't get the book ordered. I couldn't sit down and read it. I said, okay, there's something I have for you. And I went ahead and proceeded with it. And she was like, oh, I don't really need that. I go, yes, you do. You really do. So it's just something that that Road Scholar does. And I'm very happy that they do it, actually. Yes. So this is what you would screen. There's the next thing you'll see at the website. And this is what you would see when you would go on the website. And it's just, where do you want to learn? And you would put in your destination. Or you can put in, there's actually 6 screens that come up. You can put in your dates and see what might be available. Put in your country, put in your city, and then it will bring up these screens that you can just variously customize what you're looking for. Be it a grandparent program, again, you'd put in the age of the child. If you just want to go to France, you could put in France, and then all the programs probably they would do from now to the end of the year. And they would also include 2025 too. And you could see the various places that they go in France, because some of them, I mean, they might be biking and hiking and skiing, or it might just be the Eiffel Tower and the city and the museums. So you have a way to choose what you like to do and what you're comfortable doing. Also, Road Scholar does, it's good. It's a guide to your activity levels. And with every program that they do, they rate it as to your activity level. And the first is 1, 2, 3. There's 4 ratings, okay? Now, these are for not the skiing and the hiking. This is just your traveling. And the first one is easygoing, and that was the Mississippi on the American Queen. When we got off the boat, they had actually golf carts there, because you're on the Mississippi, so you kind of like walk it up to the mansions that are overlooking the Mississippi. And they had golf carts that they would take folks up to the house or property that would be looking at. And then of course the golf cart would take you down. So that's really easy going. It's very, very easy. On your feet means about 2 hours a day that you'd be standing. It would be museums, the ability to walk up and down stairs without help. But you're going to be on your feet and standing and on and off buses. Keep the pace is keep the pace. That's what we did with the grandparent program. In Paris, we were on that metro 3 times a day. We were on it in the morning to do something. We came back, had lunch, went out someplace else, did it, and we were back on it again in the evening for something else. It's up and down stairs. You are keep the pace. And Let's Go, it's just like, Let's Go is really, really involves walking. I don't know, I speak of Europe because I've spent more of my travel time there, but elevators are just a suggestion, they're just not available. So you have to be able to do a lot of these walking, and many of them don't have hand railings. So people can do well if they have a hand railing, but I was surprised how many of them do not have hand railings. And then for the outdoor adventures, this would be your skiing, your hiking. It's outdoor, no sweat. So meaning you're outdoors, it's no sweat. Then outdoor spirited means that you are walking, and that would involve your kayaking, and then outdoor challenging. Again, that would be your skiing and hiking trips. But they do show you that, and they try to follow it, because if you've ever been with a group, some people really can go faster than others, and it's hard to be held back by those that are taking longer because they are on a schedule and you have to keep the group moving. So they take that pretty seriously. This is something that's interesting. This is a biking trip, but when you would get on and pick a program that you're interested in, it, this page would come up and it would be at a glance, and you could say just a summary of what you're going to do. It tells you how many days, they tell you how many meals are included. Breakfast is usually always included because it's at the hotel, but then they give you options. As I said, sometimes you'll have lunch on your own or dinner on your own. And the Rhodes Scholar people are local people. That's another thing. They try to do a lot of things locally, like you're not going into a big department store. I'm not much of a shopper. Living here in Tyson's Corner, like I don't go to travel to shop. We can get everything we want and need, and more so in what we have here. But there are some people who do like to shop. That's what they like to do. So that would tell you there's time for that too. And then as you can see, here's your itinerary, day 1, day 2, where you're going to be at each port. Then you can see your activity level, which is listed right there. And this is outdoor and it's spirited. And then they'll give you the group size. Best, sometimes it's a small group. Sometimes people like that, or sometimes most of the trips are like 20, 25 people. But that's just what you would see. So you absolutely know what you're going to do and where you're going to do. Many of them now will start, some folks will start a chat room, with those after you're registered, and that's encouraged. So you can be kind of chatting with people. So you kind of get to know people before you take the trip. Right. Then here is, this is a great giveaway. If you would sign up for a catalog today, it's Rhodes Scholar, it's their 50th anniversary, and it's going to be join our mailing list. You're going to win a trip for 2 people, including airfare, in one of the 7 continents. So that's a good thing to kind of encourage you to order a catalog today. And here is your website, the www.rhodesscholar. And when you would go on this website, there's a few advantages. And if you when you go on this website, it's going to say ambassador. And if you would put in my name, it's Kelly, and last name is Espy. And you might see Bernadette, because that is really my legal name, and that's what's on my passport. So for Rhodes Scholar, it had to be included, but I do go by Kelly, and then it's Espy. Well, Bernadette, no one really can spell, and Espy, it's I Spy, E Spy, so it's a difficult name. But that's, my name is there among other names, and if you put that in, you would receive your catalog sooner because you have listened to a lecture about Rhodes Scholar. So that's a good thing. So it'll put you, kind of bump you up on the list, because for some catalogs there is a wait. And then you also have the opportunity to possibly win a trip, which is a nice thing, that's something maybe to look forward to in your days. They also have, we all have become very, very social. So there's a Facebook page, as you can see, and that's just Rhodes Scholar Adventures. And that's just kind of an ongoing thing. And then Facebook, they have discussion groups. They have the Women of Rhodes Scholar, and that's just people who I'm on it and they'll say, I'm going to France next year. Any tips, anything I should do or not do? There's a retired teachers travel club where the teachers have gotten together and have organized themselves, and possibly I know of one who took advantage of that and was actually back to the college that they had attended, and they kind of did a program, a reunion, and they involved it with a Rhodes Scholar program, and I thought that was good. Social Justice Club. Now that sounds, I haven't been on that, but that's fair enough. And then 50+ Outdoor Adventures Club. So it'd be people who are looking to do the skiing and the hiking and the more adventurous things that Rhodes Scholar. And as you can see, you understand why they got rid of the Elder Hostel name and they turned it over to Rhodes Scholar, because you're still learning. And there's the website for that. All right. And thank you. Thank you very much for joining me. So we have a good little bit of time for any questions that you might have in the chat room. I'll be glad to expand on something. We do have some time. I have a little further explanation here of the at-home lectures. I can go through that, a little bit information. But what's in the chat room,
Well,
Gary?
we've got a number of questions and comments. One of them, this person signed up for their first Rhodes Scholar trip in the fall, and they didn't hear anything about the assurance plan, but they were encouraged to buy their own trip insurance. So our question is, does that vary from trip to trip, whether the assurance plan applies?
The assurance plan, okay, now this is what it includes. All right, and this is in every trip you would take with Road Scholar, okay? It says, the insurance plan, it does include medical emergency evacuation. So if you had any medical emergency, Road Scholar would assist you in making arrangements for that, whatever the local custom, you might not be speaking the language of the country that you're in. So Road Scholar would help you with that. It baggage insurance for any program that you're on. If your baggage is lost or doesn't make it to where it's going, that's included in every trip. Including the international programs. It also includes medical coverage for you if you're hurt or you're injured, because your own insurance would kick in also, but Road Scholar feels responsible for you if you would have an accident on one of their trips. But they also encourage people to take travel insurance if your trip would be canceled because of an illness or a death in the family, or so you need that travel insurance. And I think particularly in our age bracket, it's a good thing to have extra travel insurance. But this is just Road Scholar assistance program that they just feel that they want to take care of you when you're on a Road Scholar trip, and that's what it includes. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I think,
it's in full print. I mean, it's there. When you go in and look at your see your itinerary for every day, but then there's always of what is included in your trip. And this is what is included in that insurance. You know, your
okay.
baggage insurance, as I
I've
said.
got a couple of questions about solo travelers. You mentioned that a little bit earlier. One person wanted to know, do you ever match people up as roommates, or do they single travelers just pay a premium for
Right, right.
meal accommodations?
When you go on to the Road Scholar, you'll see it'll say double or single. And if you put in the double price, this is another thing I like about Road Scholar. That price that you see, that's the price you're going to pay. You're not going to be at the Eiffel Tower and they say, oh, by the way, you want to go up, it's going to be so many more euro. They don't do it that way. But that price will include everything that's in it. And you'll see single room or double room, and it'll come up. Now, the single room, if anyone has looked at it, is more because you're single. And in some cases, it can be quite a bit more. So I did go down to, I was on a trip and I went solo, and I did request a roommate actually, and it worked out beautifully. I ended up to be actually a school teacher, and it was fine. It was absolutely fine. So yes, you can request to match somebody up. And if you request somebody to match up and it doesn't work out, then you still have only paid the single price. But because there was so many requests for that, for solo rooms and solo travelings, they really have increased the programs that are available. So I would look at solo traveling, go in that way, or then go into the country that you want to visit and then type in solo and see if there's something that comes up. And what they're trying to do is to get accommodations where they're single rooms, like just like maybe one bed, one double bed, where most, as you know, are king beds or two queens or whatever. So so they're trying to work with that because that has been a request. But yes, they will match you up, try to match you up.
Okay. Next question. Does Road Scholar have many land-only trips in Alaska? This is somebody that doesn't do well on cruises.
Okay, land only. Okay, no, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So you would fly from here, I'm assuming that you're in Arlington, and then you would fly into Alaska, Anchorage. I saw one, we looked at that once, but that changes from year to year. And then you would fly in, and then you would be hiking or skiing or sightseeing in Alaska, depending on where you're going in there. But you don't have to do it. Not everything is by ship. No, it's no, you can go and just go to Alaska and visit. I know whaling and there's a lot of Alaska. You hear about Alaska, the next thing you hear about is cruise, and you're right, but there are land trips in Alaska. Yes. Yes.
You talked a bit about the various activity levels, and this person wants to know um, how accurate are those descriptions? How, in your experience, if they list it at a certain level, is it really that way, or is it easier or harder?
In my experience, thank goodness I'm active, so I didn't have issues, but they do try to be as accurate as they can. In fact, as an ambassador, we just did a survey where they listed the trip and they say, okay, how would you describe this. What activity level would you put this trip at? Just to see if what they were putting in their catalogs was correct. So it's, it's iffy. But if you sign up for a trip, or you want to sign up for a trip, they will, you'll put in your group number and you call Road Scholar, and there'll be a group leader. And the group leader then is the local person that's there to say, like, for instance, New Orleans. So the New Orleans group leader for us, we actually had her name before the trip, or even before you put any money down, you can do this. And she would contact you and say, okay, on day one, it's pretty light. Day two we're going to be doing, you're going to need to stand for 2 hours or 4 hours. When we go to this museum, there's no elevator and there's 3 or 4 floors. Can you walk up 3 or 4 floors? So they really do try to do that. They try to take it very, very seriously, because I think they do have problems when people can't keep up with the group, because if you're going to see 3 things in the morning and you have a lunch reservation for your lunch and you have to be at the restaurant, you want to be able to see the 3 places. So you have to keep it moving. So yes, yes, it's accurate. Now, the one trip, the last trip I took, the lady, because often you can extend a trip. If you would go, for instance, to New York City, you could go on like 2 days earlier and see maybe something on your own or whatever. So she arrives 2 days earlier. Doesn't she fall, hurts her ankle, and then she had paid for this Road Scholar trip. So she was the one exception, but she did actually very, very well. She did. But she said, and then I think there was maybe 1 or 2, like she didn't go to the upper floors or whatever. She kind of paced herself at what she was able to do. But that's an accident. That can happen. But it is accurate. Yeah.
Okay, next question is, what kinds of accommodations are available in overseas cities? Does every room have a private bath? Do they have air conditioning? What kind of amenities are there?
Yes, again, depending on where you're going, but Road Scholar does 4-star hotels. And as anyone who's traveled to Europe, a 4-star hotel here in the States is different than a 4-star hotel in Europe. They are smaller and more compact. But yes, they all have private bathrooms. There's no sharing of bathrooms. And accommodating, England, the rooms were small. Ireland, the rooms were small in Ireland. They're just smaller, but you do have your private bath. And yes, they are air conditioned, and they would tell you if they're not. But as you know, a lot of the restaurants are not air conditioned in Europe, but your hotels are. Yes, the accommodations are nice. They are. Yep.
Okay, on the bicycling trips, do they have the option of using electric bikes?
They do on some of them. Yes, they've become very, very popular. Yes, yes. It depends
Okay.
on where you are and what exactly what you're doing. But yes, it is optional. I've seen that.
Does Road Scholar also offer hiking tours in New Zealand?
I
Do you
don't
know?
know. I don't know. You would have to
Okay.
put in New Zealand, get on your website and then type in New Zealand and then see what comes up, or New Zealand / hiking, again, see what comes up. But I don't really know. But a good question. It's beautiful country, I hear. I'm sure they do. I know
On
they have
the
Tasmania, that part, I've looked at that. Yep.
on the grandparent grandchild trips, is there a limit to the number of grandchildren per adult?
Um, I believe it's 2. Now, the one that I was on, the grandparent, there was a boy and a girl. We had the grandma and the grandpa, and the boy stayed with the grandpa in that room, and the granddaughter stayed with the grandma. So there was 2. But again, you would have to look at the program, and they would have to be around the same age, because you'd be like from 8 to 10 and 10 to 12. So if you had 2 children in that age bracket, again, you'd have to look at it and then check and see, because of the various accommodations, if you're going to be in different hotels, do they have enough sleeping arrangements? That would be your big thing. Yeah, so it would depend on where you want to go. So you'd have to look into that. Yep.
We have a question here. How does one become a Rhodes Scholar ambassador?
Well, let's say volunteer is a better way of putting it. They like to fancy it up a little bit. I did take trips. I was excited about them. And when every Road Scholar trip that you take, they'll ask you to fill out a survey about it. And they really take it pretty seriously. The complaints, if there's any about a restaurant or whatever complaint somebody would have, it's really looked into. But I was very, very positive about it. I particularly love the grandparent programs, and I guess after about my fourth or fifth trip. So to answer your question is that you've taken Road Scholar trips, that you like to talk to people, that you're social, and you just feel good about it. It really, I have yet, let's see, I've been doing this now. I hate to say this, for let's see, 12 years, and I have yet to take one trip that was paid for totally with Road Scholar. It takes quite a long time to build up what they call vouchers to pay for a trip. It's like now today, when we finish up, if you do a request a catalog, and hopefully you'll put my name in, I will actually receive $1 for your requesting a catalog. So it takes a long, long time, a lot of lectures, but it's fun. It's something to do. And from just to talk to Gary, yesterday we were on the computer just setting this up. So I'm also keeping up with my technical skills, because I'm solo, I'm by myself, I'm just not, it's my social activities that's keeping me on the computer, and the computer is the way we're really doing everything. So I'm learning with Gary's help how to do a Zoom and do good things. Yeah, so there's advantage to it. There's advantages to it, but it's not money making, if that's what you're interested in. But Road Scholar, I'm asked this: do they have jobs? And if you go into Road Scholar and you look at job opportunities or job search, if there is something that you're interested in doing, they're based in Boston, Massachusetts, but everything now is remote, so you don't really have to be in Boston. But if you are interested in employment, look into it.
Okay, does Road Scholar ever do any singles trips?
Oh yeah,
Singles only?
yes, that's your solo traveling. That's your solo traveling. Yes, very much so. And since the
Well, but
pandemic,
it sounds like, I think the person who's asking here is they don't want to be the only single person in a group of 24 married couples. They'd rather be with, 24 other single people.
well,
Are there trips like that?
oh yes, that's the whole idea of the solo trip.
Oh,
You
okay, okay.
or, that you sign up for solo, you type in solo traveler, and they have increased since the pandemic, particularly. And a lot of women, there are gentlemen on them, but they're mostly women. And you're with a bunch of women for, 20 women for 5 days. Everybody has their own room. That's one category. Then you might be sharing a room with another category. But yes, there's no couples in that. If you're mated with a
Okay.
couple, you're not on it. It's not solo. Then it would be
Right.
I guess we have solo, and then we have intergenerational programs, which is the grandparent, the parent, and the child. That's intergenerational. Then we have just the grandparent program, which is just the grandparent and the child. Yep. Mhm.
Okay. And don't see any more questions. So if anybody else has additional questions they want to ask? Oh, okay. For any groups that sign up, where do they usually go? So if, for instance, a group like us wanted to
Okay.
go somewhere, are there popular destinations?
It depends. The one I was involved with, they were going to Texas, and they had arranged, they wanted to go to Texas, and they contacted Road Scholar and asked would there be somebody that would come in and talk to them, pretty similar to what just tell them basically how to do it and how to go about it. But they had picked their destination. It was Texas. I never knew why it was Texas. The other one I knew about, they were doing a college reunion, like a 35th college reunion. So they went to the college town, and then they did a Road Scholar trip around that, which included their class reunion. But it would really depend, I think, with your group, with the Arlington Village, Neighborhood Village, you might have a group like your bridge, your game group. So if you have a day that all the bridge players get together and play bridge, they could arrange a program, 20 of them get together, arrange with Rhodes Scholar, and they would do a program on bridge, and you play bridge for hours every day. Yeah. So I think you kind of pick out what you really want to do, where you want to go. Yeah. They have a lot here in Virginia, both in Virginia and in Maryland. I periodically look at it. I think last year there were 4 programs in the state of Virginia. One was down in the Charlottesville area, and it was down, around Charlottesville and around Thomas Jefferson. Then they do also one around the Chesapeake. They've done that. They've also done something up at ski lodge up in Wintergreen. They did a trip up there that includes skiing at Wintergreen, but it was combined with people in Rhodes Scholar. And then Maryland also, they'll do something on the Chesapeake, something including boating on the Chesapeake. Yeah. So if you don't
So
want
where
to
is,
spend a
go
whole lot
ahead.
of traveling, if you don't want to have to do airfare, that between Pennsylvania, Kentucky, Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, you can drive. So then you've eliminated the extra transportation cost for yourself. Yes. Yes, Gary.
Another question is, where does Rhodes Scholar find the people who provide all these lectures?
They find them basically since 1975. They've been working with the universities. That's why it's the University of the World. Like I talked about the Cuba, they were able to make those contacts in Cuba with the universities. Like in Ireland, it's with Trinity University. So the lecturers come from Trinity University. As you go into the countries, the lecturers come from them. And then they have their local people. Your group people would be like here for Virginia, there's someone that, like for the Charlottesville, there would somebody that would be possible, very living close to Charlottesville or close enough to know the museums, and that it might be a Dawson from one of the museums would lecture maybe for a 1-hour lecture on a museum, or someone would have an expertise on Mount Vernon and have an interest in it and has read many books or whatever, and you would have a tour of Mount Vernon, and they really know it and they know the history of it. And yeah, but they're really pretty good. Yeah, they're really very knowledgeable in their respective fields, and Rhodes Scholar looks for that. So that's where they.
Is the expectation that all the travelers are going to speak English?
No, no, not at all. You would have to, depending, I mean, if you came from from here, if you're English speaking, if that's your first language, you're fine, because as you know, most of Europe, there's not a problem. But if you didn't, they would do the best to accommodate you, for whatever language you're in, whatever language is your first language. Yeah. And as you know, so many of the signs now are in English, and well, in the first country, and then there's English. The other thing that hasn't come up is with diets. They do their very best to accommodate diets, be it kosher or diabetic, or within the limitations of the restaurants they're using, or vegan. They'll do their best to accommodate dietary requirements. Yep.
Is that something you would want to let your group leader know well in advance, rather
Well,
than rolling up to the restaurant and saying, "Oh, but you
oh, no,
know,
no, no. You'd have to let them know in advance that you had restrictions. And then they might say, depending on what country you're going to, that they really can't accommodate you. It depends, like, a vegan diet is a difficult diet to follow, and you can't guarantee that every restaurant that they're going to go into is going to be able to do vegan. Yeah. So you'd have to find that out before you would put any money down. You could find that out. Very definitely. And as I said, because they have the group leaders, you have all your lecture people who are lecturing on their respective fields. But when you go with Rhodes Scholar, you have one person, or if there's children, there's 2 people that are just Rhodes Scholar people that stay with you from day one. Like they meet you the first day and they stay with you to the end, and they'll accommodate you, and you can get in touch with them before the program, and they'll know what restaurants they're going to use, and they could advise you.
okay." Does Rhodes Scholar do many private customized trips each year?
Uh, customized. By customized, no, not, they do a 3-month, like 3-month tour. Imagine being in Rhodes Scholar with a private jet. I think it's up to about like $80,000. And I'm sure if you're paying $80,000, I think they might accommodate you, customize it a little bit. And that's probably, it's on a private plane, private jet, and I think they would try to accommodate. But they have the trips, they're kind of pre-planned, they have the lectures, the trips, and that's really where you got to go with the program, basically.
I think they mean if, say, I wanted to get a group of folk music people together, could you arrange for us to meet like great folk musicians, that kind of thing?
Okay, okay. I don't know. I really don't know. I've never been asked that. Okay, so you want to so I would get right on there, and just put in folk music, or you want to visit with people, musicians that are just doing
It
that.
doesn't have to be. I think what that person was asking was if they have a specific interest, is there any way if they can get enough people together to go on a trip that would enable them to focus on that?
Okay, all right. Um, I can't, I really, I'm stumped. I'm stumped. I would think if they have an interest that they could contact someone in Road Scholar. They do have a 1-800 number, which was beautiful before the pandemic. But now sadly, I was just called it the other day, and they do now have, I had to get in a queue and wait for the call back. And I was sad to see that, because that was like the first time. And I always liked the fact that you called them and spoke to a live person. But I think it'd be worth a phone call to say that I'm interested in this. Do you have it? I mean, they go to 150 countries. I mean, it's international. It's amazing sometimes when I look at the catalogs. I thought, oh my gosh, I didn't even know about this. So I wouldn't say no to it, and I wouldn't say yes to it, but it's surely worth an interest. And if you have 20 people, they could possibly take one of the programs that they have already in place and then customize it a little bit to accommodate the 20 people. I think that's probably the way Road Scholar would do. They're very user friendly. They'll go out of their way to accommodate people, and I like that. But so hopefully that answers your question, but it's well worth a phone call. Absolutely. Yep. Sorry.
Liz put up a link here. She said on the website, there's a whole page that lists trips with single rooms at no extra cost. So people that are traveling alone might want to look at that.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And Pat Burke has asked if there's anybody on the call today that would like to form a group to go somewhere. So I think I will stay on the call after we end and leave the chat open. So anybody that wants to throw in suggestions can have a few more minutes to do that.
All right. I'd love to accommodate you on that. That sounds like fun.
Well,
Don't
so far we've got Chesapeake Bay and Quebec.
Quebec,
So-
okay. Chesapeake Day, I know some people who've done that and enjoyed it very much. I believe you do a day in St. Michael's on that trip. And obviously it's a lot of boating and eating. Yeah, yeah, but there is a trip to the Chesapeake, which is nice. Close enough, but really kind of absorb yourself, in the culture. Sounds good. Yep.
So Gary, any more questions? I didn't see anything in the
No, I
chat.
think we've covered everything.
Okay.
Could I ask one more? I'm looking at the website and it says something about people can buy their airfare through Road Scholar.
Yes, they
You
can.
offer assistance with that? And
When-
I can tell you that's kind of huge because when I look for trips, my head explodes when I go to Google Flights.
Yes, yes, and rightfully so. I was just on there the other day, rightfully so. Once you have your trip where you are going to go, and then Road Scholar will help you with your transportation. I mean, they'll book you in, from where you're going into your destination. Yes, they will help you with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Well,
Well-
Kelly, you have certainly whetted the appetite of many of the people who are on this attended this program today. That was what I was trying to say. And so I am sure that in one way or another, folks will be following up in terms of the kinds of things that you shared, and congratulations on all the trips that you've taken so far on Rhodes Scholars. So thank you so much for your presentation today. It was very helpful, and it's the season for people to think about traveling. So with that, we're just about on.
You know, hopefully our paths will cross. We possibly.
Well, you never know. You never know. So just wanted to remind everybody there next week on Wednesday, May 15th, the topic of Coffee and Conversation will be Savvy Ladies.
Ooh.
And we'll be talking Tracy Wheeler and Chris Blakely will be talking about this organization. And I'm not going to give you more because that'll give you, I guess it's a volunteer organization that provides financial education to women to help them build knowledge and confidence they need to thrive and develop a financially stable future. So totally different topic, but I'm sure as interesting as it was to learn about travel today. So I hope you will join us next week on Coffee and Conversation. So have a good week and enjoy this lovely weather. It's a little warm today, but enjoy and have a good week.